The mission of Goodwin College is to educate a culturally diverse student population in an environment that builds bridges between education, commerce, and community. Our degree and certificate programs prepare students for professional careers while encouraging lifelong learning and promoting civic responsibility. As a nurturing college community, we challenge students, administration, faculty, and staff to realize their academic, professional, and personal potential. The first sentence of Goodwin College's mission statement uses the symbol of Bridgebuilding as an expression of the college's organizational purpose. As the world of higher education responds to the various upheavals represented by globalization, digital communications, economic instability, and the changing nature of what it means to be an educated person in the 21st century, successful colleges and universities have been those that have been able to conceptualize themselves not as places where knowledge is stored, but as places that act as meeting points where different fields of knowledge can intersect. Whereas college is frequently imagined as a kind of gateway that stands between a student and her future, Goodwin's bridge-based approach to higher education aspires to use education as a way of bringing students into contact with their communities, their careers, and their personal potential. The difference between a gate and a bridge may sound like a merely semantic one, but it has been demonstrated that professional metaphors exert a powerful influence on how people think about what they do. When I think of college as a gateway, I imagine the classroom as a gatehouse or barbican, the fortified part of a castle that acts as a kind of airlock between outside and inside. When I think about college as a bridge, the mental geometry of the classroom is completely reconfigured as a juncture that opens out into far-flung and unguessed horizons. The reversal of the metaphor turns the classroom inside out, so that rather than being circumscribed in a bubble, the classroom is now a node in a network of connections that is as dense as life itself. The bridge-based model of higher education lends itself to pedagogical techniques that emphasize interactivity, experimentation, and engagement. I would suggest 5 pedagogical strategies that follow from a bridge-based approach and which are consistent with the ethos of Goodwin College. 1. Student-centered learning. As we discussed last week, student-centered learning is at the heart of Goodwin College's educational philosophy. As important as it is to establish a student-centered classroom on the first day of class, successful Goodwin instructors push themselves to continue to find ways of keeping students engaged in every class throughout the semester. Student-centered education is never perfect. It is always something that you can move closer toward realizing. With every lesson plan, it is always possible to ask, how can I make the design more interactive, more meaningful, more personalized? 2. Interdisciplinary opportunities. If you're teaching in the general education department at Goodwin College, it is unlikely that your students are majoring in the subject you are teaching. One way to improve the chances that your students will understand the relevance of your discipline is to examine its areas of intersection with other fields of inquiry with which they may be more familiar. Invite students to relate the content of your course to what they are learning in their other classes. Consider reaching out to faculty in other departments to speak to your classes about the overlap between your discipline and theirs, and consider designing assignments that encourage students to investigate the relationship between what they are learning in your class and what they do or hope to do for a living. 3. Experiential learning. John Dewey, the grandfather of experiential education, stated that, quote, "Education is not preparation for life, education is life itself." End quote. This is a wonderful aphorism to bear in mind as we attempt to build bridges between the classroom and the world. Rather than acting as a kind of kiddie pool where students practice skills against the possibility that the skills might someday prove useful, experiential learning encourages students and instructors to work together to identify opportunities to use the learning experience as a way of making something happen in the actual world. Arrange writing or speaking projects that allow students to communicate with an audience beyond the classroom walls. Work with students to design research projects that address current issues that affect them personally, and work alongside students to use the coursework as a way of furthering their own academic and personal goals. 4. Community-based projects. Asking students to write about, investigate, critique, and engage with their local communities is a powerful strategy that accomplishes a wide variety of educational goals in a single gesture. In addition to encouraging students to look more deeply into subjects that they may think they are already familiar with, it allows students to network among local community members and prospective employers whose acquaintance may be of some practical value to them. It stimulates civic engagement, and it provides a hedge against the possibility of plagiarism, because the more specific and localized a research topic is, the less likely it is that the student will be able to find ready-made content about that topic. Use guest speakers, local journalism, and the internet to invite the world into your classroom. Use class trips, service learning style projects, and field research activities to invite your students out into the world. 5. Career-oriented inquiry. Encourage students to reflect explicitly on the relevance of what they are learning in your class to their own professional goals. Whatever you teach, you probably have some good ideas about how familiarity with your discipline will make your students better nurses, teachers, histologists, or whatever else they aspire to become. The more directly you can communicate these ideas, the more likely it is that students will find inherent motivation to master the course content. An instructor who does this abandons the role of gatekeeper, taking on instead a role similar to that of guidance counselor, life coach, or literary agent. Ultimately, of course, all of these roles and all of these teaching strategies represent so many efforts in bridge building. I look forward to using the second week's discussion board to continue sharing ideas about how to use our classes as opportunities to build bridges between education, commerce, and community, as well as between professional careers and lifelong learning, and between our students' classroom experience and their academic, professional, and personal goals.